This problem is a little bit different from other order of operations problems because it now has variables in it. Luckily, we are told which digits to put in place of the variable. When you do that, when you put a variable, or when you put a number where a variable should be, that is called substitution. Substitution is whenever you replace something with something else. In this case, we're replacing the variables, each one of them, with a specific digit. So we're told x is equal to 4. That means we're going to replace this x right here with 4. We are told that y is 5, so we're going to replace the y with 5. And finally, we're told that z is 3, so we're going to replace this z with 3. Now, when you substitute, substitution must be done with parentheses. What I mean by that is whenever I put this 4 down in place of the x, I'm going to put the 4 in parentheses. As soon as I start writing, it'll become clear why. I'm going to do 3, and let's suppose that I did this wrong and did not put the parentheses. That is not 3 multiplied by x squared. That just looks like 34 squared. I don't want to do 34 squared. I want to do 3 multiplied by 4 squared. I have to have parentheses for that. Okay, plus 2, and now where I'm going to put y, I have to have parentheses. If without the parentheses, it would look like I was writing 25 instead of 2 times 5. So I need to substitute with parentheses. And then finally, my z value of 3, of course, also goes in parentheses. And so after I do all of my substitution, this is what it's going to look like. Got a lot of parentheses going on here. It would be okay for you to replace the parentheses in the problem with brackets. So if I wanted to, I could do brackets here instead of parentheses, just so I've got a different grouping symbol. You don't have to, but just if you find all the parentheses confusing, you can use a different grouping symbol. Okay, here we go. Order of operations. First thing we do is the grouping, and inside those grouping symbols, we've got 2 times 5 plus 3 to the third power. So we have multiplication, 2 times 5. Then we have addition, that's what the plus sign's telling us, and then we have a power, 3 to the third power. Just like any other time we do this, we start with the power. 3 to the third power means 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. Okay, everything else is going to stay the same for now. Okay, so now, oops, got 2 completely different grouping symbols here. Let's stick with the brackets. I like the way that looks better. Okay, so now we only have 2 operations left inside the grouping symbol. We've got 2 times 5, and then we have plus 27. And multiplication happens before addition, so we're going to do the 2 times 5 next. 2 times 5 is going to give us 10. Now, if you're wondering, hey, how come you're not doing the exponent, that 4 squared? It's because the 4 squared is not inside of a grouping symbol. We have to do our grouping symbols first. Still one thing left to do inside these grouping symbols, and that's the 10 plus 27. 10 plus 27 is going to give us 37. Going to leave the grouping symbols. And in front, 3 multiplied by 4 squared plus. Okay, so now we're finished with the grouping symbols. You may be thinking, what do you mean we're finished? I still see brackets there around the 37. Yes, but there's nothing to do inside the brackets. We can't do anything with 37. So let's move on. We've got 3 multiplied by, so we've got multiplication. We've got 4 squared, so we've got a power. Squared is a power. And then we have plus 37. So we've got multiplication, a power, and addition. And order of operations says we do the power first. So we're going to do 4 squared to start off with. So 3 multiplied by, and then 4 squared is 16. I'm going to use a dot for multiplication here because without some sort of symbol, it would look like 316 instead of 3 times 16. It would also be perfectly acceptable to use parentheses still. 3 and then 16 in parentheses would be fine. Now we've got two operations. We've got a multiplication and an addition. Multiplication is what's going to come next. 3 times 16 is 48 plus 37. And the last thing we do is 48 plus 37. And 48 plus 37 is 85. So 85 is our final answer. 85.